that are burnt. There's
Sorry.
certain areas that are burnt worse than others, and other places that are not burnt as much. One of the things that was really strange to me was Linda's body didn't seem to be targeted. And that's, we got that bullet point down there as well. So I'll kind of go ahead and get into that. But it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Why? I mean, there's only a few reasons that people would actually do arson like this, and that one is to cover up another crime scene or something, or out of revenge, or to collect money or something like that, like on insurance. And this didn't appear to be like of course, with her body there, didn't appear to be an insurance deal. So I don't understand why whoever did this did not target her body, because in most cases, that's what they're going to want to try to do, is get rid of that evidence, and it just don't make a lot of sense. And we got short burn period there. The fire department seemed to, I don't know, seemed like it was, what was it, Jen, 3 minutes, 4 minutes?
Yeah, it's a 3 or 4 minute response.
So they got there fairly quick. They done an awesome job of knocking that thing down. There was places that in the photos that we've got, there's places where the fire was starting to breach into the attic, but it didn't burn all the way through. So that just tells me that the fire department got there and done a really good job on the knockdown and then their salvage and overhaul. They done a really good job with doing that, and it kind of looks like the fire was kind of contained to some certain areas. So that kind of leads me to believe that it was started in one or two areas. Now, if you look at it, and if you listen to the podcast the other night, you heard me talk about drafting it in the fire pulling air and stuff. What that does is when there's an opening in a structure like that, the fire is going to go to that because it needs that air to thrive and to get big. So the neighbor said that he went and tried to open one of the windows and couldn't get to her, and then tried to go to the back door and kick the back door open. And if you look, the back door is where the car was, and the car got incinerated, and there's a hole in the roof above the car. So, that tells me that the car caught on fire from that draft. So what'll happen is the fire and the heat will come out the upper half of the door, and the fresh air will come in the bottom half of the door or window. So it just kind of does a double pane right there, where it does two things at one time. So, and he talked about the car. I really don't think the car was targeted, because as we were talking about it the other night, and Jen made it, if the car would have been on fire from the very beginning of this, the neighbor wouldn't have been able to get to the back door because of the car. And he states that he, kicked that back door in. So I just really, I don't believe the car was targeted, and it did burn, and it burned pretty hot. But I don't believe it was part of the original fire. I think it was an exposure, or it started from the heat from the house.
Yeah, and also part of the short burn period, we said this on the podcast too, but there was a newspaper delivery person who said they delivered Linda's newspaper at 3:45 that morning, and they didn't notice anything out of ordinary. And we understand that at that time of night, basically, you're really not looking for anything. You're just like trying to get your job done because you're probably tired and whatnot. But I'm quite sure they would have noticed flames, coming out the windows or whatnot if that had been going on. So it also appears that the fire was set either, in close proximity to when the newspaper was delivered, which would just be coincidence, or shortly after, right, Alan? Because you did say that 13 minutes would be enough time for that house to become fully involved.
If you look at that house and the construction of that house, it's an older house, and it had like wide, it looked almost like shiplap boards and it looked like somebody had put up, sheetrock over that over the years. That stuff would have burnt pretty quick. I mean, that being, that old and that dry, it would have taken longer for it to burn than a new house that's burnt now. It would have burnt longer than new ones do, but yeah, it would in 13 minutes, 14 minutes, it would have been rolling really good.
Yeah. And that window is we're calculating from 3:45 from when the newspaper person went by to, I believe it's 3:58 or 3:59 when the neighbor called 911 and said, at that time they seen flames coming out of the window. So that house is.
And what you've also got to figure in on that is what we call fire load, and that's like the furniture, the carpet, the interior belongings and stuff inside that house. That contributes to the fire load, which is going to cause that fire to burn, depending on what's in there, hotter and faster. So it's there was just I can't say enough. I believe the fire department done an awesome job getting the fire out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And in terms of the accelerant, and again, coming into this case, like George and I hadn't worked a case that involved fire before, so I'm learning a lot from you. But I felt like the master bedroom or the bed looked more burnt or charred than other areas of the house. But do you agree with that, or what was your thought process?
If you look at that bed, of course, we've got the photos that are not out, but there's one picture of the headboard of the bed standing from the foot of the bed looking at the headboard. It's burnt more on the left side than it is on the right side, and that's going towards the door. If you look at the house floor plan, it's going towards the main part of the house. So I do believe that the fire come in from that side and then come across into the bedroom.
Okay.
So in retrospect, if you think about what I just said and what I said earlier about the window being knocked out, if the neighbor knocked the bedroom window out, it would have gone towards that and pulled it into that bedroom.
That's true.
So
that's a really good point.
There's a lot of factors in there, and not being actually there the morning of the fire and seeing, the absolute best time to do what I'm doing now would have been be there that morning.
Yes, absolutely.
We're having to look at it 15 years later now and do what we can from however many miles away we are, but we can still do a lot. We can still see a lot just from the photos.
For sure.
Knowing how these things work and how they burn and don't burn, it just tells me that was the direction of travel that it come from into that bedroom, which tells me that they didn't start it in the bedroom around her body.
Oh, yeah, I knew. It's obvious that her body wasn't doused with anything,
No.
But I had always thought that they threw accelerant or something on the bed or somewhere in that bedroom, but you're thinking no.
I'm thinking no. I mean, just by looking at the burn travel, it just looks like it come across. Now I may be totally wrong, and just by taking photos and looking at pictures, I really would need to be in that room and visually look, because there's other key clues that we could look at, as far as the burn patterns and stuff like that go, and smoke patterns and heat flow and all of that we could look at. But it just looks to me like it come from that bedroom door to that bed, and it started coming across and doing what we call a rollover, and it's starting to come back down.
Interesting. And that does go back to what you were saying at the very beginning and what we discussed a week or so ago. Like, why not? Like, so the other case that you're helping our partner team on, clearly the victim's body was the target of the fire. I mean, it's right. I think pretty obvious that was the origin, and that accelerant was probably poured on her body in order to mask and disguise the cause of death. That clearly didn't happen in Linda's case. So and this is where, like, I'd love to hear other people's ideas. Why start the fire at all then? I have to assume that the killer themselves assume like, well, they're going to be able to figure out that she was murdered, so we're not covering up that. I mean, maybe covering up their own DNA, but you have to know neighbors are going to be alerted to this fire pretty quickly too.
Yeah,
I'm stumped on why the fire was even started.
well, all right, and you and I have talked about this before. One of the ways, and this for everybody out there listening, this may sound kind of morbid, but for one of the things that we have to do when we investigate this is think, what would I do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, in that situation, I would have probably, like you said, doused her body down because I'm going to try to get rid of as much evidence as I can to, to get rid of that. So, man, that just,
Yeah, that wasn't the purpose though.
no, it doesn't, it doesn't make sense.
I mean, I guess, Alan, you've investigated a ton of fires, and then you've mentioned, revenge, but like, could it literally just be like this person is in such a rage and they're so mad that they're like, it's just like another level of overkill? Like, I'm gonna take your house down too.
It could be. I mean, somebody stabbed 24 times like she was. Whoever done that was definitely mad at her for something.
Mm-hmm.
And they might have been in such a fit of rage that they, on their way out or whatever, they just lit the thing on fire too. Think,
Yeah.
is a second thought and then left.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's not a lot of it that makes just a whole lot of sense.
Well, you also had a theory in the podcast that this could have actually been accidental. Like, where maybe they were fighting like in the living room area or somewhere outside that bedroom and a candle or something flammable got knocked over?
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. It's very possible. I mean, especially if she had curtains or something there. Say this whole thing started in the living room and they got into a pretty good fight, which we're pretty sure that they did. I mean, we're pretty sure that Linda fought pretty hard. If there was any candles or anything like that lit, it might have got knocked over with a table or whatever and got up next to those curtains and set that on fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would think, I mean, if that was to happen, if she wasn't dead pretty quick, I would think that there would be more carbon monoxide and smoke in her trachea and her mouth and stuff. But there wasn't. I mean, there wasn't any there. So
that's true.
Was she sexually assaulted?
There's no evidence of that, no. Nope. Now, keep in mind, we have the autopsy, we don't have the results of the forensic testing. So, they took all the normal swabs and clipped fingernails and did all of that. We don't have the results of those. But it doesn't appear from what we've read or been told that there was any sign of a sexual assault. At least not the traditional type.
Okay.
So I want to go back. I'm going to share my screen again because one of our amazing group members, after we've talked to many of Linda's friends, we're able to piece together the diagram of her house. And my slide is not fast forwarding here. Oops. There we go. So this might not be 100% accurate, but based on photos and then like talking to people who've been in the house, we think this is pretty similar or pretty close to correct in terms of the layout. So you can see in the bottom right is the master bedroom. And that's where Linda's body was found. And so what Alan, I think, was kind of explaining is that if the fire wasn't started in there, it traveled into there, I guess, after the neighbor broke one of her bedroom windows out.
yeah, it would have spread there eventually, but a whole lot faster if there's ventilation there.
Yeah. And he did say that he broke, like, there are 2 windows in her bedroom and he said he broke one of them.
Right.
I'm hoping that he could crawl in there or whatever, but he couldn't. So you can see on the upper right is the carport. That's where her car was parked. Up top of the mudroom, just to give everybody the orientation. And that's also the back door that you can see going into the mudroom. That's the one that the neighbor kicked open, trying to get inside to help her. And the only other traditional point of entry or exit is the front door over on the left side of this diagram in the living room. So there's only 2 traditional ways in and out of this house. And Alan, you had said anyways, you thought the person went out the front door. We're not sure if the front door was open.
Yeah, we're not,
We're
we
not.
don't know that for a fact. The reason I said that initially was, and I wondered if that's the way they went out, was because the eyewitness, the neighbors, whenever she got up, she seen fire coming completely out of the front of the house. So they just assuming that
Yeah.
was, that door might have been open, and we need to get like a fire report and stuff, from the firefighters. I would like to talk to some of the firefighters that were there to see what they done or what they had to open or not open and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be key. So, because if they got there and that front door was standing open already,
Yep.
that could tell you that they left in a hurry and left the door open.
Yeah.
Or
I
if
mean,
it was locked or unlocked.
Obviously either exit is possible,
Right.
but since the neighbor said he had a kick open the back door, it indicates that it was locked. Now, it may have also been like the handle was too hot to touch, but that door was definitely shut. And he, for whatever reason, couldn't make entry through the front door. And so your analysis makes sense to me. It's because it was, already the
There was
house.
fire
had
already coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. And Amber, you're with us. Amber had posted a question based on this photo. And Amber, would you mind unmuting yourself and asking Alan what it was you brought up in the Facebook group about this photo and the window on the left?
Yeah. And so the window on the left, it looked like to me, and I don't even know what a hopper window is. I had to look it up. But it looks like one of those a hopper window, but one of the windows where the bottom half of it comes inward. I mean, it could be going outward, but it looks like it's coming inward.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well,
Okay. So I didn't know if people who knew Linda, if that was a window she typically would leave open at night when she slept, or if you have any other ideas, Alan, as to thoughts about that window.
most likely the reason it's open, I mean, you look at it close. Jen, can you zoom in on that?
Yeah, I think, oh, maybe.
Oh, that's good. I mean,
Oh, that's on the right one. Oh, I keep skipping around. Sorry, guys. Okay.
yeah, that's actually, that's kind of almost an optical illusion that you're looking at. That window that you see that's open is actually on the other side of the bedroom. So, and it's folded in, but from what I've seen in the pictures, all of the windows in the house were made just like that. What probably would have happened is the fire department, whenever they started doing, after they finally got to where they could make entry, they went around and opened the windows after they got it knocked down and were doing their salvage and overhaul, and were actually letting the smoke and stuff out through those windows. That's probably why it was open. Some of them, if you look at the one that's here closest to us, right there where the smoke stain is above it, that one, the whole window seal and everything's completely gone out of it. So, like this one laying in the front right here to the right, that could be the window frame for that one on the left. So, but the whole frame and everything has come out of it.
Yeah. Also, so the window on the left, I've actually had people ask me this question offline. I'm just gonna put it out there. That window on the left is one of the windows in Linda's bedroom, as Alan said. They actually took her body out of that window. I'm just gonna clarify that because there's some conspiracy theories out there about why that was done. I talked to the coroner about why that was done. And even though he wasn't the coroner at the time, he said it was because they would have had to basically trample the crime scene with her body through the whole house to get her out. And they felt it was easiest and also just a little more discreet to transfer her through the window and to their van. So that may be another reason why that window is completely broken out. Is
Most likely.
yeah. Yeah, and the window on the right is part of the mudroom. So like, you can't see it because it's black inside, but that's where the washer and dryer was behind that window there. So Amber, did that? I don't have the answers to whether she would sleep with that window open, but does that answer the rest of your question?
It does, yes, thank you.
Okay. And then, so this is the other side of the house. On the left side, you can just barely see the end of the carport. On the right-hand side of this photo, you can just barely see the front door of the house. Alan, what does the burn pattern out of these windows tell you, if anything? Is there anything unique or?
Yeah, just by looking at this picture here and don't take this the wrong way. I'm not assuming or saying anything, but just by looking at this picture, the fire probably started in that corner to the right there, somewhere in that area. It looks to me like it burnt longer in that spot, and that's usually what we go off of. We go from the least burnt to the most burnt, and whenever we're looking for those spots, because if you look above that window, the siding's burnt completely off. You've got a hole burnt through the top up there, and then you've got holes that are actually burned above the window, where if you go to the left, that was still really hot back there, and you had a lot of fire coming out there that burnt back there too, which would have been close to the kitchen area, going back towards the car. So again, that kind of shows me the fire travel, going towards that area. So now, like I said earlier, there were other spots inside the house that had some real deep, heavy charring like you see here. So there could have been multiple sets.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm not saying that's where it started at, so don't take that the wrong way. But like I said, there could be several sets in that area. And two, if the neighbor said they seen fire coming out of the front, that could be where the front of the house is and the door is to the far right over there. If any of that was open, it could have pulled, flame from the interior part of the house to that corner. So
I actually never realized there was a hole in the siding until about a minute ago when you said that.
yeah, if you look above that, you can see the siding's completely.
Yeah.
It looks like aluminum siding, so that could have burnt. It had to get pretty hot right there for a while to melt that aluminum off of there.
Is that what the blue is, or what's the
Yeah,
blue?
that's probably a primer that they put on there, and
Oh.
it was blue originally. Somebody painted it.
Okay.
But yeah, if you look on that window on the left side, about halfway up, there's some silver. It looks like it probably is aluminum siding that was on that house.
Okay. Interesting. These photos are in the group. They're ones that were taken by the family a couple of days afterwards. So, and if people want, I can repost them again after this.
Somebody posted in the chat, was the fireplace chute open or closed? I really don't know. And then somebody else posted that were there candles in the bedroom? It's possible. I mean,
Yeah.
that's stuff that the fine details like that is not stuff that we know yet. So
Yeah. I mean, obviously we have some interior photos, but I can't pick out if there's candles anywhere, but an expert might be able to if they, really study those photos. But yes, there was gas to the house, right? I'm pretty sure, because isn't this a gas meter
yeah,
outside?
there's a meter right there at the bottom
Yeah.
underneath that window.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm still stuck on this waterbed theory.
The waterbed?
What the waterbed? If she was on the waterbed, they were fighting there, whatever, would that still go up in flames since that's water, or how would that?
Now the blankets and stuff like that would, but the mattress itself wouldn't. It would absorb a lot of heat. Eventually it would melt, but now the flames, the sheets and the bedding and stuff like that would definitely burn. The headboard definitely burnt. We could see that. that's really crazy because I've been doing this since the early 90s, late 80s, and I can count on one hand how many houses I've been in that still had water beds in them. You know, I've never worked that many. I haven't worked that many of them, so it's really strange.
Do you ever remember working one where the waterbed mattress was still full of water after the fire?
No.
At some point, somehow.
At some point, somehow, you know, it would have been emptied out, but
Okay.
now, Cindy, the fireplace, it was, if you look at, I think Jen's got an interior photo there of the inside of the living room.
Yeah.
It's in there. See over in the far back corner, it was like a wood stove right there.
Yep.
That went out into the chimney.
Yeah. So it wasn't like the traditional built-in fireplace everybody thinks of. It's a radiating wood stove. You know, they gotta load firewood into and light and everything. Whether the chimney and chute and everything was open, I don't know. I don't think we have that. And I don't have a picture of the inside of it, so I don't know if there was firewood in there, but I mean, again, in my novice opinion, and we have a pellet stove now, and my husband and I had a wood stove in our last house, so I do know how these work. To me, it doesn't look like that was any sort of point of origin for a fire. And Alan might disagree with me, but feel free to if you want to.
You talking about this stove here?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it looks like it could be, but if we had a lot clearer picture, we could zoom in. There's not much charring around there.
Right.
If you look at where the pipe actually goes into the wall, you would see that if that's where it started at, you would see that almost burnt completely out around that pipe.
Okay.
And going up. So, and there's not real heavy, deep charring. Like if you look at that board that's laying in front of the stove right there, that's kind of at an angle, which is part of the window frame, that's deep, heavy charring. Or if you look over here to the left, underneath the window, that's deep, heavy charring. There,
Yeah.
that's what when I say that, that's what I'm talking about.
And
Old firefighters in the back in the day would call that alligatoring, because it looks like
okay.
alligator skin.
Like on the board here.
Yes,
Okay.
that board that's at an angle right there, we used to call that alligatoring years ago. We're trying to get away from that now, call it charring.
And I did use this photo on purpose because we discussed it in the podcast, but if you guys look, like these are components like you'd have on an entertainment center. And like Alan said, I believe this is the frame of the window, but there's a bunch of electronics in here. And obviously they're on the ground where they wouldn't normally be. So, you know,
that could be from that could be from a fight or rambunctious firefighters.
Right, exactly. But I just wanted people to be able to visualize what we had been talking about, you know, and then, so again, Alan, you're saying here on the wall around this window frame, that alligator type burn pattern means
That's really heavy.
indicates it burnt longer or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we look for. If you notice, if you look right there where you're at, look to the right over towards that table and chairs, just to the right of the stove.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of just the way I teach my students. Noah Boone's on here. He knows what I'm talking about. He's one of my students. If you back out and look at this at an angle, you know, and kind of use your whole peripheral vision and look, you can kind of see how it progresses towards the left. That tells you over towards the right that it didn't burn there as much as it did over to the left.
Yeah.
So that kind of tells you that the fire, that could have been a point of origin right there in that corner and burnt around that way. Or the fire could have come over and into that area.
Yeah.
But
Because as you guys can see, you can still see the color of the wall paneling.
yes, over behind those chairs and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's hardly any charring over there at all. And the further to the left you get, the worse the charring is. And that tells you that burnt longer in that spot.
Yeah.
Where it's charred the deepest at. So that's and somebody just posted on there, could it be wiring? I mean, it's possible. I'm not gonna say it's not. I mean, I'm not there, hadn't looked at it. And you're right, there is a lot of wiring come in right there. But that would sure be a heck of a coincidence if an electrical fire started right after this lady got murdered. So, I mean, it's possible. I'm not gonna say it's not. It's very possible.
Yeah. And also in this photo, part of what we're seeing, the white, is the foam, right? That they used,
Yes.
Alan, to
Yeah.
extinguish this. It's not
Yeah,
all.
that's another reason they got it put out so fast as they use foam. I'm sure the lady called 911. They told the fire department or told 911 dispatch that the person was still inside the house and had a well involved or fully involved structure fire, and that's how it was paged out. So whenever they got on scene, they went ahead and immediately started flowing foam. Foam, the way it works, it actually makes water wetter. It allows it to penetrate into the fuel faster and cool it off faster. So you see that a lot nowadays. A lot of fire departments that are very aggressive do use foam like this. So, and it just keeps us from having to go back as well on sometimes on rekindles.
Yeah. So Noah is saying, agree with you, Alan, on the longer burn is more than likely in the mudroom, and the carport heavy burn patterns would be from the car being subjected to radiant heat. Vehicles are huge fire loads and do severe damage and burning in proximity to houses. So what is it? Can you just explain what a fire load means? I don't
Fire
know.
load is any fuel that's inside the house or inside.
Oh, okay.
So couches, carpet, furniture,
Okay.
the house itself is considered fire load.
So all the stuff on the interior of a car too.
Y'all ever watch the TV show Hoarders? That's
Oh
a
my gosh,
heavy-
yeah.
that's a heavy fire load when you see that inside.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why that you see that the code enforcement officers are there trying to get them to clean that up, because it's such a hazard, you know, and if there's other houses that are close to those and they do catch on fire, it could just spread from one area to another.
Yeah. And I did go back to the car photo here, so because we kind of skipped over it, but just to give you an idea of what it looked like if you, and this one's in the group too, but if you download it and zoom in, you can see the interior is just gutted. You can see the metal part of the steering wheel and that's it. Everything else, rear view mirror, seats, appears to all be gone from what we can tell.
One of the other photos that we've got is actually taken over on the driver's side of that car, and you can see the metal door frames are kind of bent out like this, and what'll happen is that metal will get so hot that it starts to bend, and that could have been what allowed the fire to get into the inside of the cabin of that car where all the flammables are. So that's possible too, and once that also starts to bend like that, it will break that glass out too.
Okay. And then I see what you're saying about the roof of the carport. It is pretty.
Yeah, you see up above, straight up above the car, there's a hole where
Yeah.
it burnt through.
Okay.
I just don't think there's any way if that car was on fire that the neighbor got anywhere close to that back door. It's gonna be impossible, I think.
That's what changed my mind on that. You wouldn't be able to run by it, either the back or the side. You can see it's pretty close in to those walls, so I don't know how anybody could have got by it to try to kick in that back door.
Amber, you're probably right. You said that maybe the killer assumed if they light the fire on the way out the front door, it will burn the whole house down, but they will be long gone. That's most likely what they were thinking. I'd say you're probably right on that.
Yeah. The question is like, why?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean,
No. I think that our top theory has been that, they cut themselves, they were bleeding, they knew their DNA imprints and stuff were all over the house. But then their DNA imprints, or the majority of them, I would think, should be in the bedroom where she's found. And yet we're not sure that the bedroom wasn't targeted, but she definitely wasn't. And
we've seen going back to the other case that we're working with our other team. Man, that one, I've never seen one burn as bad as that one was, and that one was targeted. It's absolutely,
Yeah.
that was almost total cremation.
Yeah.
But this one, I mean, there's still a lot left of this one.
No, she was fully intact. I
Yeah.
mean, she had some burns on parts of her skin and that was about it. So she actually ended up being protected, kind of.
Yeah,
I
she
think
was.
maybe from that water from the waterbed or who knows what. But
Being down low underneath the side of the bed too, where her body was, it could have.
yeah, that's right. So can you guys see my cursor? Or no?
No, Jennifer, I can't see it.
Okay, well, anyways, look at the master bedroom. And so where Linda was found is between that master bed and the window on the right. And I bring this up because Alan's been doing some experiments because he's lucky, I guess, to work for the fire department and have life-size dummies that he can, do some reenactments with. And him and his students have been working on that to try to figure out how she ended up there. Do you want to talk a little bit about your theory, Alan? And there you go, Jesse. So where the orange circle just appeared is where Linda was found.
That's where her body was, and her head, kind of going off the position, and I'll kind of backtrace to what my theory is. Where Jesse put that circle at, her head, Linda's head was up against the baseboard, there, right underneath the window, and both of her feet were kind of still up on the bed, and she was laying on her right side almost. Jen posted a picture a few weeks ago or last week. Was it last week or week before when you had the picture of the stab wounds? Or
Oh, the injury
drawing.
sketch?
Yeah, your sketch.
Yeah. I can bring it up if you want me to.
You can if you want. I believe personally she was in the bed when she was attacked, and I think she might have been laying on her right side with her left side up and her left arm kind of up this way. And the reason I think that is if you seen the stab wounds, the way they were oriented, they were almost running vertically or horizontal, vertically with her body. And it would look that way if somebody come in and just started stabbing on that side. And I think she started rolling around this way with her arms, and then that's when she got the stab wounds in her chest, and then started going across the other side of the bed trying to get away from them, and that's where she ended up at, was over in the floor on the other side of the bed. And another reason I think that is in the actual scene photographs of her body, her comforter and stuff is kind of wrapped around her feet and her legs over there. So this is the pictures here. I believe that she was laying on that side with her left side up, and those stab wounds started. And then as they're rolling across those stab wounds, the person just kept stabbing. So that tells you also that this person was in probably a fit of rage. I mean, it's just not something that occurs. Most of the time, if we get into an argument, I'm just going to stick you one time. But if I'm super, super mad at you and I wanted to make sure that you're gone, I'm going to just keep stabbing.
Yeah.
And we talk, I've got friends that are CID officers and stuff, and they kind of go along with that. Some of the stabbings that they've worked, if it's multiple, especially upwards of 24, that's, that's somebody that was trying to do some damage.
Yeah, was some very mad. And we have differing theories on this because Jeff, brought up some excellent points in his podcast and Zoom too. And this is why we want to, show all this to people and keep an open mind and try.
I'm not saying Jeff's wrong, but at all.
But but no, it's very valid.
I think the more theories that we have, the more we can piece this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more I talk to you about it's hard to tell because everything in the room's black. Right. But I do tend to agree. It looks like a bed sheet or something is kind of wrapped around one of her feet.
Yeah.
And that could just be happenstance if she's trying to get away.
Right.
But
and
it could also,
that would also tell me that she was laying in that bed
Yeah,
come up this way, you know, and she has, if you look at her arms, the backs of her arms have a lot of stab wounds in her hands and in her arms and stuff. So, you know, she's coming across like this and she's probably fighting. And if she rolls across, that's when she starts getting those
hmm
wounds in her chest and in her neck and back, like we see.
But being on a waterbed and her moving, that could have caused some of her injuries too, because they're both wrestling around on that bed.
It could have. You're right. You're right. And that's another reason that we kind of thought that and I understand what Jeff was saying about the killer might have, you know, wounds on his hands or her hands, you know, with that knife slipping or something. You know, I don't know, but I don't know that we'll ever know the real truth unless we were there. But I think we're really, really close.
I'm gonna try to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And
I think we're really, really close as to what happened.
And just a reminder to everybody, the wound to the right side of Linda's head, that's actually blunt force trauma. That is not a knife wound. And it is essentially, so, and I can tell that for sure because the skin is like ripped, not sliced.
Right.
So her head, whether it was just accident or her killer purposely pushed her into something, but her head made contact with something pretty hard.
And that would have been the headboard.
It could
Could
have
be.
been the headboard. One of the other things that I thought of whenever we found out that was blunt force trauma, you know, like I said, her head was laying in the floor. If you look at the baseboards, she had baseboard heaters in there, so they stuck out probably a good 3 or 4 inches. And if she comes off of that bed with any force and her head hit that baseboard heater there or the windowsill, it could have caused that trauma to her head as well.
Yeah. There's
So,
a lot of surfaces in that bedroom that could have caused it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But it's essentially, it's not a triangle, but there's basically 3 tears to her scalp. But there was no there's no skull fracture or anything like that underneath. So it was severe, but not like that severe, if that makes sense. No, I know you're on here and you and Alan know each other. You have anything? I saw you made a couple comments, but is there anything that you want to chime in about? Anything on your mind?
So are y'all thinking that, I know y'all seen more fire pictures than the public has seen. Are y'all thinking more of the mud room as a point of origin, or the kitchen, or?
I couldn't begin to answer that. It's so hard. I mean, Alan will have to answer that because to me, it all just looks black.
No, I'm thinking other areas, but I'm thinking there might be multiple sets, Noah, honestly.
All right. I've pretty much voiced what, areas of that I agreed that the fire probably traveled out to the vehicle versus being set.
Mm-hmm. Have you been on any scenes that have any similarities to Linda's? Sorry, I don't know your whole background, but in your experience, have you attended any scenes like this?
I've been on scenes where a car's been in a carport kind of similar to this, and it did severe damage.
Uh-huh.
It was set to radiant heat. So I don't think the car itself was attacked.
Okay.
Makes me proud.
You guys work together?
No, he was one of my students.
Oh, okay, cool.
He graduated and now he works.
Okay.
He's actually on duty right now.
Well, thanks for helping us, Noah. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to help where I can.
Yeah. Anytime you have an idea, please reach out. Gina's saying another factor for consideration, it's very hard to get out of a waterbed. Yes, especially her height, and she was shorter. So yeah, Linda was about 5'3", 105-10 pounds. So she's pretty tiny. One usually doesn't just roll over and off. That's interesting. I didn't think about it that way. There's a degree of winding up for it for those of a shorter stature. I wonder if the killer is also on the bed, their weight is also on the bed, and therefore the mattress is more like firm or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say that the killer would almost have to be on there with her, you know, at least trying to keep up with her if she's trying to get off of there.
Mm-hmm.
But whoever said that, they're 100% right. I would think
Yeah.
that, you know, trying to wrestle off of a waterbed would be a chore in itself.
Dawn, can you and your husband do a test for us? Take a video.
Easy.
Well, see, mine has baffles in it. It's not a free flow.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
But if you could go on the guy that actually made it on YouTube, and he can show you the demonstration of what a free flow does. But it is very hard to get out of a free flow because I grew up with a waterbed. And even when I was pregnant, I had to kind of roll. That was tough.
Like,
That was
1,
really
2, 3.
so yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. We had a big discussion with Dawn on the last Zoom about waterbeds. If anybody here missed it, it was really interesting.
Yeah.
But definitely adds a factor to this because again, you know, you have water moving back and forth and you can't completely control or predict your movements, right? Either person in this situation.
Right.
If they're, you know, entangled on this waterbed, I think it's 100% had to be a factor. It's just a matter of trying to figure out how much of a factor it played. And Gina says, yeah, I have to kind of kick my legs a couple times to get the right momentum. Yeah, I can totally imagine that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm sure if she was in bed and that's where it started at, she was doing all she could do to get away from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she had to have been.
Yeah. Well, and we've wondered in terms of the location where she ended up, it's kind of odd. And so we've debated that too. Like, how do you end up on the far side?
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I feel like it started and she rolled across and ended up over on that side.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, if she ran from another room and went across the bed, I mean, that's another possibility, but, man, I don't know. My gut tells me it started in the bed and she rolled over to that side, you know, trying to get away.
Yeah. Which then, to me, indicates premeditation,
I would think so.
which changes like
A lot.
a lot of our other theories, you know, but it's good to talk it out like this and brainstorm.
And if he was heavier than her on the free flow waterbed, he'd be doing some big waves, you know, her trying to defend herself and
Mhm.
him coming at her. It's gonna move her in a lot.
Yeah.
Gina, it looks like in the picture, you asked if it looked like her legs were twisted in the sheets. It looks like they're kind of bound up and not bound up, but kind of twisted up in one of her legs is kind of still in the sheets and stuff. So it just looks like the way in a couple of the actual scene photos that we can't show, they're kind of over. She's over on the side, like Jim was saying, and then the mat or the comforter and other sheets are kind of over on top of her legs and stuff. So it just kind of looks like that.
It's hard to tell though too, because we don't know what the waterbed itself did or when it lost its water. You know, we don't know. That could have even forced her body onto the floor. I mean,
You know, that waterbed could have been leaking the whole time, you know, with the fire department there. And if that person did stab the bed you know, it could have been leaking out the whole time. It just took a little bit for it to do that. You can't really tell because when you look at the scene pictures, the floor is wet and it's carpet, but the fire department was just in there flowing water and foam. So you never know.
yeah, exactly. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but heat and fire itself can do things to items inside of a residence, right?
Yeah.
Effect.
And one of the things that I've been thinking about, I've been trying to piece together in my mind, what woke the neighbors up, they heard a couple of explosions.
Yep.
So I've been trying to think what could that have been? Well, the conclusion that I've come to, it could have been two things. One or both tires on the car, or it could have been aerosol cans in the house. They're like
Oh, yeah.
hairspray, something like that, that could have, I don't know if anybody's ever burnt trash or something, but seen an aerosol can in a burn barrel or whatever. It makes a pretty good pop when it goes off.
I actually have a question. I lived in a house that had in the kitchen around the stove area,
Mhm.
gas. It was completely gas. Could that not have caused the explosion too?
If there was a leak, and I would think that it would have happened prior to the fire. There would have been an explosion and then the fire. And usually when you see that happen, there's a whole lot more damage to the house. We're talking splintering and everything else. I don't really think that this was an explosion. I think this was a fire, and then there was something small in there that caused it to go, to pop. Like I said, it could have been aerosol cans, like hairspray. I don't know, what she used or how she used it. Lysol, anything like that could have been in the house that she might have, had in there. I mean, you guys think about the stuff that you've got in your house,
Well, we burn our trash too, and I tell you what, some of them things are seriously loud because he forgets
Yeah,
that I put it in there,
yeah.
and he'll go to burn and it pops, and I'm like, oh, sorry.
Oops. Alan, could it have been any of the windows or no? That-
I don't think so, because usually those don't make like a real loud explosion. You just you hear like a small pop and it falls out. It's really,
Okay.
I mean,
So,
I don't think so. I think it could have been something like what we were saying.
yeah,
It's on the car or some kind of can, or
yeah.
she had something else in there. I don't know. I mean, she may own a gun or something. I've seen ammunition cook off inside a house before and pop and make a really good thump. So and that can actually get kind of dangerous.
Hmm.
Firefighters.
Also, when we have done the trash and it does explode, it throws some stuff out of the fire also,
Yeah,
which could make another fire going on in the grass.
yeah, spread it out.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, that's true too. Maybe the original fire caused secondary fires or something.
Very possible.
Yeah.
Very
And
possible.
I mean, she had long hair. I'm sure she had hair products. She was, from what everybody says, she was very neat and tidy in terms of her house. So she could have Lysol or other aerosol cleaning products. So I never thought of that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And
I
that
mean,
could
it
be
could
what,
anything. I mean, you think of the stuff that that's in there. Everybody, yeah, batteries.
batteries. Yep.
I mean, you think of the stuff that everybody has in their house. I mean, it's most people underneath people's kitchen sink is a hazmat incident waiting to happen. I mean, think about it, So, but and then the garages and I don't know what she had on the carport. There's just it could have been anything really.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Killer may have incorrectly thought Linda would be burned fully, hoping to conceal the fact that she was stabbed, make it look like an accidental house fire. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a theory we can't discount at this time. Because we don't know for sure where this started, and if it's an amateur, they don't know what they're doing. It'd be like me trying to cover up a crime with arson, even though like I'm a
well, most
homicide investigator, I don't know how to use arson to cover up a crime well. So
well, most people don't realize that it takes. And you think about Judy's case.
yeah,
It takes a human body burning at a really, really high temperature for a really, really long time to totally get rid of it. And when people do this, like in Linda's situation, when people do this, they don't realize that. The lay person that's out in the average citizen doesn't think about that, doesn't know that data. So they think, well, I can just burn the house down and get rid of it and I'll be free and clear and I'll get away with it. Well, it usually doesn't work that way.
right.
Very seldom. Judy's case on, the one in West Virginia, there's other circumstances on it, but
Yeah.
that one is one of the few that I've seen that the bodies actually burnt that far.
Yeah. Well, and the scene was so remote,
Yes,
there was almost nobody who could have seen it. And it,
Right.
just like Linda's, happened in the middle of the night, so everybody's in bed. In Linda's case, thankfully, luckily, if you want to, I don't really like using that word, but at least she lived in a regular neighborhood. And
Right.
so the fire was discovered fairly quickly. Like Alan said, firefighters did a great job getting it under control and extinguished.
well, and you gotta look at that as well, and I don't mean to, and I am definitely not down in any fire department or making one sound any better than another, but when you're in a rural area like that, you got strictly all 100% volunteer firefighters that have to get up themselves and go get the truck and then go to the fire scene, and where you've got full-time firefighters like what Noah is doing right now, they're there. I mean, they're ready to go. So it's two different worlds. And you know, she was in Port Orchard, Linda was, so you know, they got a full-time department, so they're rolling pretty quick, and that's why they were there within 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah. There was something, I'm going back. Okay, somebody wrote, is it a clue as far as a criminal profile that the killer did not pour accelerant on her body? I mean, it's definitely a clue. It's a matter of figuring out what does that clue mean, and when we go back to what was this killer trying to accomplish by setting this fire? It clearly, she clearly was not trying to cover up Linda's cause of death or the fact that it was a homicide. I don't believe that, because they would have targeted her body with accelerant, or you know, and so then is it like covering up their own DNA?
Yeah, I don't know that.
Go
I don't
ahead.
know like you. I don't know that it would be like a criminal profile of it.
Right.
It's just odd.
Yeah.
It's almost like, to me, the fire was an afterthought. You know, they're like, oh, hey, maybe if I set this on fire, it'll get rid of everything. I don't think the fire was actually premeditated. I think they just done it on a whim and thought that it would take care of everything and then they would leave. But you know,
If y'all don't mind me putting something in, it's kind of like what Alan's mentioned on this a couple times. I've seen this multiple times that somebody actually has tried to commit arson. The normal person doesn't realize how hard it is to start a fire in a way, and they don't realize how much it actually takes to do damage to the human body to the extent that it wipes everything out.
Yeah.
A normal person is not thinking about. I mean, personally, me before in the fire service, I would not have thought to pour accelerant or any extra stuff on a human body. I would have thought, you know, hey, the house fire is going to take care of it.
Okay.
yeah,
Maybe
that's kind of what I was getting at too. Noah's right. I mean, people just don't. And a lot of times too, when you've got folks that burn a house or something trying to collect insurance or a car or something, they usually don't know like the stuff that we as firefighters know as to what it takes to get that fire actually going. And they'll shut all the windows and shut all the doors and stuff, think, oh, this will burn on the inside and then I'll be long gone. Well, a lot of times the thing will burn itself out because it runs out of air. And that's what I was saying about in Linda's case. If he opened that back door and opened that window, that fire is going to travel to those areas. And that's where, I mean, it's going to go where it's going to get air at. And, you know, but the fire, you know, somebody caught it and fire department got there fast enough that it didn't burn up all the evidence.
Yeah. And I mean, there's some other scenarios we can't rule out at this time. One is that, you know, she's killed earlier in the night and
Yeah.
the person went home and thought about it and for some reason came back, or they wanted to set the house on fire at the time, but they couldn't find any accelerant, right? So they went and got some. I mean, that's more rare, but it's
Right.
not something we can rule out. It's not impossible. But again, like if that's the scenario where they left and came back, which is super risky, but people do it. what, what's the motive? What was so important to them in terms of setting the house on fire that it was worth that risk?
Yeah,
And really,
you're
whether
right.
they left or not, what was so
They could've-
important to them to take that
they-
risk?
Yeah, they could have thought about that for a little bit after they got home and thought, oh crap, I better go
Mhm.
fix this.
Yeah.
So I might have left something there,
Yeah,
and they could have, you and I were talking earlier before, uh, the Zoom started, the person that done this might have been under some kind of chemical,
sure.
they could have been drunk or they could have been high or whatever, and they weren't thinking straight. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Something else, actually, I can't remember if I mentioned this to you before, Alan and George, but so if this attack happens at night, obviously it's dark outside, and if Linda's in bed, it's probably dark inside, and they may have gone in there with no light. They might have lost the weapon and couldn't find it. And so they just say, I'm just going to torch the place and hopefully that gets rid of it.
that's possible.
So there's that as well. And I mean, like we've said, we know based on early emails from the original detective that evidence and forensics were found at the scene. We don't know what those specific things are, and that's fine. But the fire didn't fully accomplish, if that was the goal, the fire didn't fully accomplish that goal, which is for us.
Yeah.
So Diana, thank you, Diana, for joining us, one of Linda's sisters. What if they were interrupted by the paper boy? Yeah, that could be too. Paper delivery person comes by and they freak out, or that's when the attack against Linda is going on and the person just panics, and like Alan said, it's hard to put yourself in a frame of mind because we're thinking logically about it right now, but when you're in a panic like that, literally, walking that line of going to prison and not, you're not always thinking rationally.
Well, their adrenaline, is going to be
Yep.
flowing. And I've talked to police officers and combat veterans that have been in situations, similar to this. They sometimes will get tunnel vision. Where they don't see anything but just right in front of them. And firefighters will do the same thing. We've had firefighters get hurt doing that because all they get is just focused on one thing, and they'll either, so that the killer most likely was thinking, they just got out of a pretty healthy fight with this girl from stabbing her as many times as they did. And that when they were leaving, that was just an afterthought, and they just started the fire. And
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't put accelerant on her because maybe he was could have been a remorseful killing, like, oh, what have I done? Then they think, oh, now I got to cover this up.
I had actually thought that very same thought. Most of the time, if a woman did this, they're probably going to think that they're going to have remorse, and they don't want to go back in that room where that body is. So they might started it, somewhere else and then left. But I have actually thought that. But I'm kind of back and forth, whether it was male, female, but
Me too. But that's true. They might not have. There is definitely a thing where, the adrenaline does come down after a minute or whatever, after a murder, and you can't go look at what you did.
Yeah.
Maybe they couldn't go back in the room, and that's why there's no accelerant on her.
Mhm.
Just from a psychological standpoint,
Yeah.
It was too much. So this is good though. I got a lot of new ideas tonight, so I appreciate everybody's insight. Hang on, there was another comment I didn't. Okay, so Gina's like, but if they're an expert in knife work but don't know how to light the body itself, it seems so obvious to me that if you're starting a fire to cover up, that you would douse the body first. This always troubled me. If it was to cover up, why wouldn't you start the fire on her? And yeah, I know that's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's a reason for every action that a killer takes at a scene, especially when they stay longer than they have to. It's a matter of figuring out those reasons, and then what does that reason tell us about this killer? And that's what we're working on here. So it's like great that everybody brings all their ideas. And we can't rule out that there wasn't two people involved. I mean, someone could have gone over there, a confrontation occurs, Linda's killed, and then the person panics, but they call someone they trust to come help them cover this up. And it could have not even been the actual killer's idea to start the fire. Maybe they called somebody and the person brought over a 5-gallon, thing of gas and doused the house and lit it and said, let's go. I mean, we can't rule out that there's not somebody else involved. We've definitely worked cases like that before where others were involved in the cleanup or the aftermath, I'll say. But
Awesome.
and if that's the case, that works in our favor because that means two people know what happened. And probably by this time, 15 years later, at least two people know what happened anyways, because people can't keep their mouth shut. So if, I'll just put it out there. If you were the one that was called and you didn't realize what you were getting yourself into, come forward and we'll do our best to, explain to the DA, who's the one that can bring charges, that you've been cooperative. So think about whether, if you're an accomplice to this, do you want to go down with the killer too and get the same charges, or you want to tell us what happened and get a better deal? So,
Jen, what is known about her relationships with people?
she had a couple ex-boyfriends who I'll call serious ex-boyfriends, meaning she had dated both of them for quite a long time. Our understanding at the time of her death is that she was not in a serious relationship. Every friend of hers that we have talked to and met has, talked very highly of Linda and how great of a person she was, how friendly, outgoing. Like we haven't heard anything negative. Yeah, she had a criminal charge for drugs at one point. It got dropped, but there's nobody has had anything negative to say about her lifestyle, or her personality. But from what we can tell, she was officially single at the time of her death. She may have been dating around. We know that, she was kind of exploring internet dating and went on a couple dates with people she met online, but we don't know the extent of that. So, and obviously she lived alone. She didn't have a roommate or anything. And her killer probably knew that and used it to their advantage. But that's what we know about her romantic relationship status at the time of her death. Anybody else? George, you've been awfully quiet. Or is he even still on? Oh, he might not even be on anymore. That's why he's so quiet.
Yeah, I started to say I don't understand that.
I don't either.
He must have caught a flight.
Yeah, for those who joined a little late, George is on his way to Washington currently, and he's stuck at not stuck, but his layover at the Dallas airport was longer than he anticipated. So he was on for a bit, but maybe his flight got moved back up. So I'll be headed up that way Thursday, just as a reminder. Saturday, we have a couple public events. If local residents are able to come out and hang out, we're going to do a presentation at the library at noon on Saturday, and our presentation just covers our team from the university, our methodology, kind of how we operate, at least the public side of how we operate, because there's a lot of stuff we do behind the scenes. And then George and I will talk through a couple of the cases we've worked together, and then obviously we'll have a section on Linda's case. And then George, there's some kind of I don't know if it's true crime author bookstore crawl thing or something, other event going on that afternoon, but we'll be around in the area because George and I did co-author a book on a previous case we worked. And so we'll sign a few copies of that. And then we're going to go over to the Golden Grill at 5 o'clock and hang out there. What was one of Linda's favorite watering holes. And they were, as soon as I called, they said, "You're the one working Linda's case." Yep. So we would love to have you guys. So if you got some free time, late afternoon, early evening, Saturday, drop on by. It's very casual. We're just going to hang out and have a beer and some food and try to meet some local residents and, just build our source network and connect with some of Linda's friends that we haven't met yet and do stuff like that. So, and we have some other things that investigatively that we're going to be doing while we're in town, but we're not going to reveal those at this time. So, Yeah, Diana said he left. Yeah, I guess he must have. Okay, so Gina says, so could it be a Mr. Goodbar situation? And I don't know that reference, but in terms of, maybe you can explain, but brought the wrong person home. What's your thinking on that, Gina? If you're willing to share. I'm not that young, but I haven't heard that. A late night error gone wrong, right? We've thrown around the idea, obviously, that Linda, went out on a date or made arrangements with somebody that she didn't really know to come to her house. And then, things went awry. And again, it's not a scenario that we can rule out. I can't really come up with a situation though that would lead to this level of overkill if she and her killer didn't already know each other. I can see, like Alan said, 1 or 2 wounds just to slow her down or so the person can get out of the house. But I can't come up with a valid situation where it escalates to this point where she is stabbed 24 times, 4 of them absolutely lethal wounds, and go to the trouble to set the house on fire over what?
That's what I was fixing to say. I mean, a stranger, I don't know. I don't think I think that's too much overkill. I think it's somebody that she knew that
Yeah.
somebody had beef with her, or she had a beef with them.
Yeah.
It just,
Until we can rule out the inner circle and persons of interest that we know she knew, for now we are going to work off the assumption that she knew her killer to some degree. And had, I don't like the word relationship because it makes it sound like it's romantic, because it could have been just like a friend, and over time or whatever, it snowballed and the other person got super mad at her. Could have been an ex also. But we strongly believe that she knew her killer. And indications are that, the killer knew her, because either she let them in the house, from what we can tell, she let them in, or they knew how to get in, because there's no sign of forced entry. I mean, yes, we have broken windows and stuff, but that's extremely rare. And
well,
so
that's another reason I would like to talk to some of the firefighters that were there to see. I mean, I like to see if there's like tool marks or something like that on one of the doors, or
mhm,
I mean, if there's not, and the doors were all shut, and the neighbor had to kick in the back door,
yeah,
somebody was either there or somebody got in and had a key or something, or knew where a key was, or something.
right. Yeah, either she let them in or they knew how to gain access without alerting her.
Right.
If it's premeditated, or even if it's not, if someone could have come over to hang out, but they do have a history, argument starts, escalates, whatever. I mean, we've even thrown around the idea that she slept with someone's significant other. That's a scenario we definitely can't rule out. And so whoever was with the significant other and found out, I could see this being a product of that.
I'll come up here.
So, well, we run pretty long. Anybody else have any ideas or questions you want to throw out before we let y'all go to bed? I really appreciate everybody joining us and all your support. We will definitely have updates after we go to Washington. We'll be posting updates while we're there and photos and stuff like that. So just keep an eye on the Facebook page, invite your friends to join. By the way, on our next podcast episode, for those who follow true crime, we have Bill Thomas. He is the brother of one of the victims of the Colonial Parkway serial killer, and he is fascinating. And he has his own podcast called Mind Over Murder that's really, really good. So you're going to get to hear from him a week from this Friday. We'll have his podcast episode out, and then we'll probably put one together with audio from our visit to Washington, because we're going to meet with some more of Linda's friends, and George and I will actually be on the ground together. So we'll probably have audio of us brainstorming and stuff like that. So just stay tuned and keep giving us your ideas and everything else. And thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Alan.
You're welcome. Thank y'all.
Hope your week gets better.
Oh, I'm great. I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.